victory is mine. That feels correct.
As you can see from that opening clip, we're on a 7 win streak in Sapphire. I did switch over to RUNECRAFT partway through this win streak. I was using Sword before, and I think I'm on a 4 win streak run in Sapphire. I was on like a 2 or 3 win streak run in Ruby before I got promoted into Sapphire, but we're undefeated so far. And in this video, I want to showcase why I think and why I pivoted from Swordcraft to RUNECRAFT, because I do think for the latter, RUNECRAFT is the more versatile deck. Swordcraft was very strong. I don't really remember my record with it, but I may have only lost like 1 or 2 matches. But it just feels like in some scenarios, Swordcraft just can't do enough, whereas with RUNECRAFT, it feels like you always have potential outs to everything in the format right now. And so this matchup is going to be a good example of that. So again, these are probably the 2 of the best decks in the format, or considered to be right now for the ladder in Set 2's meta. And this match is a good showcase as to why, or at least I'll try to explain it. So in the opening, you know, going first is a little bit of a disadvantage in my opinion, but with RUNECRAFT, again, you don't really care. At least in my build, I run the Foresight still, and obviously the Witch's New Brew. So these are great 1-drops to just keep developing tempo. And with the Witch's New Brew, you know, even if you don't have plays, you can always just use the engage ability here to gain the Earth Sigils and build up for the Norman, for the Sage Light if you need to use it, which in this matchup you definitely would for the board clear instead of the healing, but I think I still use it for healing in this match, but having it as an option for the board clear is very, very relevant. And then one of the only decks that can really keep pace, I mean, I guess Haven does decently well into Sword now with the Ward build, but because Sword prints so many bodies for free, right? Like 1 card prints 2 bodies, 1 card gets 2 followers and recovers play points. Like, it's crazy the amount of value they get. They just outvalue you, right? Because you're spending 2 to 3 cards a turn to clear their board, where they're just spending 1. Amalia, Luminous Mages comes in, prints all these bodies, puts up like 7 to like over 15 damage sometimes, right? Especially with Evo points, and you're just like, I have to answer these boards, and I'm expending all my resources to do that. But Rune is one of those decks where you can clear boards with things like the Sage Light, with the William, with the Kuon, because you print that many bodies as well, in order to break through that kind of, I guess you can say, OP mechanic that Sword has. They still have a lot of versatile tools in their arsenal though. They have a lot of very good removal options. Here's one of them in the Samurai after they've unlocked Super Evo. They can set up things like this Vaults with the ambush so that you can interact with it. I mean, I could have Williamed it obviously, but I was thinking to myself, no, I'm saving this William for a bigger board clear. I can always recover health, and I know that even with the Evo, which is what they did, I mean, the Super Evo would have put me to 12, which is the break point for the Albert Super Evo, right? Dealing 12 damage to you with the storm damage. But again, I'm feeling confident. I'm going to go ahead on this turn because, you know, being the player going second for the opponent here, they're going to be on turn 8, and then using the play point that they have, they can enhance to 9 in order to drop the Albert. So the blocker here kind of messes up their plans a little bit. I haven't seen any indication that they would be on Quick Step later to get the extra break point to get to 13. Regardless, though, I'm putting up the blocker. They're going to drop Luminous Magus and Super Evo the Steel-Clad Knight, which takes out my blocker, and the Celestial Shikigami, and then puts me to 12 off the Super Evo damage point that comes in. We're going to be able to find a Sage Light Teachings, which we're going to use to heal here, and then continue to draw through the deck with the Foresight. I expended a lot of resources here because I was planning to decline, but then I was like, oh, you know what, I can actually clear here, and instead of using, well, I was going to use or pay the actual play points to play the decline, but we ended up reducing it to 0. I just used the second call in order to get the Shikigami to clear the board. The opponent here doesn't have a direct answer to my board. No Amalia, you know, 4 soldier ward character development, so they're going to have to use their Albert here. They may have a second one in the hand, but they have no more Evos now, and that's really, really relevant because now I'm safe from getting OTK'd at 12. Albert can only hit for 6, and it won't have the buffed up strength, so that's really, really beneficial. I'm going to clear as much of the board as possible and then just go for a decline, seeing what I can find. And the reason that you decline here is simply just to get the play points back, right? We find a Norman, which I only play 2 of in this deck. You could argue you want to play 3, but Norman's going to come in here. Not going to need to use the Evo point So just the heal back up to 13, really beneficial here. And I'm putting my opponent on. Now you have to consistently answer my board. These Luminous Maguses and even the Amalias that might come in are not going to be as high value anymore. Unfortunately, this William does not have any spell boost that we just drew into, but it's totally fine because the Kuon is going to come in here and get an enhanced 10, and you don't need Cactus into Declimb. Kuon into Declimb is obviously just as strong here. I think I make a couple of like newbie mistakes, like you should technically super Evo clear and then William after you decline, but you want to decline first before you super Evo just to see what you might draw into. So in this scenario, like, you know, we've drawn through so much of our deck. The opponent still has 24 cards. No Gildarias came in, but we could have dealt with them easily if they did. But you know, we still have a lot of good threats in our deck, obviously going down to so little cards. Like, and this is one of the reasons why RUNECRAFT, in my opinion, another reason it's so strong, because we're going to find our answers. We're going to find exactly what we need because we draw through so much of our deck. And, you know, down to 13, I could go back up to 20, play 2 Sage Lights for 6, gain 4, go to 20, you know, redraw with Looking Smart, Super Evo, the Kuon, right, the Looking Smart will ping off one of these, hopefully finishing off the Steel Clad, and then the Kuon can finish off the Mages. This attack direct puts them down to 1 after the Super Evo. Kuon takes another 1 off of them. You know, like, the deck is just so versatile, and then I can just Cactus the next turn if I need to. Like, even if they have an Amalia, yeah, it's probably not going to be enough. You could argue, like, now that I think about this, thankfully the opponent resigned, but I probably should have just only used 1 Sage Light to heal. If any, I probably don't even need to, because I need to save these for board wipes, now that I think about it. So yeah, if this opponent would have kept going and they had the Amalias to put up the 4 warded characters, I may have shot myself in the foot a little bit. I mean, I was probably still fine because of Cactus, but that's just an example of like how much versatility you have with RUNECRAFT. Let's go ahead and take a look at another matchup. Alright, in this next one here, we're going up against Portalcraft, a deck that I think has really taken a step back in this meta. I was playing this a decent amount. I play it on my alts because it's one of the cheaper decks to make. And it's still a good deck, but when you go up against like fully teched out Sword and RUNECRAFT decks, and this is going to be a good example of where you can kind of fall down with this deck. Where this deck does really excel, in my opinion, the Portalcraft deck, is if you can see 2 Orcus. I think if you see 2 Orcus, your win rate goes up dramatically. It probably goes from something like 40-50% with 1 Orcus to like over 75% if you see more than 1 Orcus. Like, that's how important that card is. Anyways, to start off here, the opponent, as usual, right, I played a lot of Portal, Puppet Portal in particular. I know what this deck wants to do. In the early game, it tries to be very aggressive so that it can get you low enough where the Odins and Orcuses can just finish you off. So I'm going to stave off as much early game pressure as I can. I end up drawing into all 3 of my Stormy Blasts. And I didn't use a Stormy Blast last turn because I'm like, again, knowing how this deck develops, I need to save these for some of the more mid-range threats that they might develop. Things like the Indomitable Soldier on 4 if they play that, the Yudi, which you saw us take out there instead of taking out a 2-drop. Because again, my Melvies and my Miss Mirandas can trade into 2-drops. And like maybe like Noahs and stuff like that later on. So down comes the Firestorm Duo and takes out my Melvie, and that's fine. We can clear this with a Shikigami if we want to, so that they don't get extra value off of the extra 4 damage. I can save my Anangrea for a more meaningful interaction. I got 2 of them, so I'm feeling really strong now in this particular scenario. I would like to see a little bit more card draw, but again, this is where the versatility of things like the new Norman really play a huge benefit. So down comes Noah. Again, I know how this deck wants to function. They get the puppets in hand. They get him +1/+1. They're gonna brick their draw here, but that's okay. So I know that, like, yeah, they're building up the increased strength puppets for Orcus, right? They want to get that extra damage in with the Orcus. Instead of pushing for 8, they want to push for 10, 11, 12 damage, maybe even with an enhanced puppet that's been boosted. So there's a lot of versatility. Here they're going to drop an Odin, and I've talked about this before, right? With puppets, you don't need your Evo points generally. I mean, sometimes you want to use them for the Sylvia, but generally you can use them to push damage. So here, you know, they get some damage in. I believe I Sage Light healed. So again, knowing this deck, they've got another Noah, so they boosted up some more of their puppets, probably to 3 1s. I think they had maybe 1 or 2 puppets left in hand that would have been double boosted now. And then they clear my Anangrea and end with a Noah on board. So here the Norman is going to come in, and it's going to heal me back up to 20. and then we're going to evo it because we're going to be able to clear the Noah, but also, like I said, I need to draw cards here. So we draw 3, going to 8 cards in hand total. Now we're in a phenomenal spot. Like right now, getting all of this redraw down to 16 cards left in our deck, like, yeah, it's strong. We have the decline, right, almost at 0. When the Kuon comes in next turn, it's going to be enhanced, so we're going to get the spell boost off that, and we can push massive damage if we want. I do make a misplay here. A demonic call comes in, and I wanted it to get taken out, right? I wanted it to trade, and then I was like, oh yeah, the warded character on the other end here only has 2 strength, so I don't actually get the extra value here. So for those of you that don't know, if this thing will actually pause, what is going on here? Holy, okay. For those of you that don't know, if this Shikigami gets taken out, and then I use the enhanced Kuon 10 instead of going for Ann and Gray in this scenario, because I played the call for free, so I still had all 10 play points to use the Kuon to be enhanced. The Kuon, when it summons the Noble Shikigami, will actually include the strength of this Shikigami, even though it got taken out. So my Noble Shikigami will not be a 10-10, it'll actually be a 13-13, which just means I push for extra damage here. But because this didn't get taken out, if I play the Kuon here, I lose the value in the paper Shikigami, because this one won't be included, because of this demonic Shikigami stayed on board. And, you know, I'll still get, like, I think an 11-11 Noble Shikigami, but it kind of defeats the purpose. So I'm like, alright, I'll just be more efficient with the board clear, save the Kuon for next turn. Again, I'm at 20 health, and the opponent is clearly saving their Orcust for, you know, really high value, like clear out a big threat, plus deal a ton of damage to me. So I'm just going to play it a little bit passive. Once they've shown their hand, like, I can react to it. It is a little dangerous because, again, if they have back-to-back Orcust, I could just straight up lose the game. Like I said, if you have 2 Orcust with Puppets, it's one of the reasons why you would play Puppet, is because it's one of the strongest follow-through plays that you can have, simply because of how much damage you can put up. And this opponent is playing it correctly, right? Like, they are saving the boosted up Puppets that they've got off the Noahs. This is how I play Puppets as well. So here I get another call through now. The opponent pushed some damage through with the Odin, putting me down to 14 from 20. But exactly what I talked about comes through here, right? So I use the second call, deal some damage, my Shikigami gets taken out. So when I play the Kuon with enough board space, I get the full value. The Noble Shikigami comes in at 13-13, and I'm actually going to decline here. So you want to decline before you Super Evo, so this is correct. But then once you see your redraw hand here, you should, if you're going to board clear, I should Super Evo and then get the extra point of damage and then board clear after that. So I miss out on 1 point of damage by if I don't Super if I clear the board before I Super Evo, I guess you could say. So here I Sage Light to again heal myself, knowing that, you know, they don't have an enhanced puppet in hand yet, but if one of those 0 puppets, 0 cost puppets is a 3-1, the Orcust can push 11 damage, which will put me very, very low, which is, you know, I still survive, I'm not dead by any means, but then if they have a follow-up Orcust, it makes it that much harder for me to kind of claw back enough health to avoid getting kind of double Orcust, basically, right? So the Sage Light there is really good. We're going to drop the Melvi, which is going to get us a redraw in the Witch's New Brew. We get another Homework Time, which I probably should use here. I don't know why I wouldn't use it. Okay, so I do this correctly. Yeah, I get the extra point of damage. 14 in 1 turn, put the opponent on 6. Use the Looking Smart there. Get another Sage Light and a Coctus, and we have a Decline and another Kuon. So it's just like, yeah, if they go for Orcust, which they kind of have to in order to clear, and this is again why Puppets kind of just fell back a little bit in this meta compared to set 1, is like this is now a reactive Orcust, which can be okay, because here you can see they put through 10 damage, right, or very close to 10 damage. And they end with an Orcust and a Lloyd, which is normally pretty good. The issue is, all I need to do is push through this Lloyd. I've already put them to 6, and this is again another reason why Rune is just such a strong deck right now, is because it has the tools to deal with any kind of deck. Has the healing, has the card draw, has the end game options. It's just really, really strong. So yeah, down comes the other Kuon. I don't even go for the Coctus, because again, the Kuon will spell boost, so it spell boosts up my hand. 42 spell boosted William, clearing the board there, and yeah, this opponent doesn't quit, so props to them. I'm gonna Super Evo the Kuon. Again, a mistake. I should Super Evo and then crash the Super Evo to get the extra point of damage, then drop the William to get the extra point, but it doesn't matter because we had lethal regardless. And just like that, we end up taking the game. And we have insane follow-up plays, right? Like another William clear if we want. You could argue I could have gone for the Cactus, but it doesn't really matter. 7 cards left in the deck, so again, we're just drawing the bombs, right, that are left in the deck. The Williams that we've saved, the Cactus, the Declimbs, the other Kuons. Again, if you play this deck correctly, this is what you can kind of frame Rune around, right? Is like, I get my deck down to those final 10 or so cards, and then they're all bangers from there, so I know I can close out the game. I've got multiple Declimbs, which are all spell boosted up, ready to go at 0 cost, and I just explode, right? And then Declimb refills my hand, redoes the play points, and I just overwhelm the opponent. So yeah, good mid-game options. Anangrea, rejected Artez here. Good early game options. Melvi, Miss Miranda, things like that. Stormy Blast, etc. And then obviously some of the best end game in the game entirely. One of the reasons why RUNECRAFT, in my opinion, is one of the best decks for the ladder.